Hi, and thank you for joining us for Relationship Real Talk. This is episode number 4, and I know our title slide said taking down your defenses, but we are actually going to be talking about criticism today. So just keep that in mind as we dive into our 4th episode of Relationship Real Talk. As you can see, I am joined by my colleague, Dr. Kelly Blasko. Hi, Dr. Blasko. How are you doing?
Good. How you doing, Kelly?
Doing good, doing good. I am excited to just jump right in. So we have been talking over the last couple of weeks. Actually, it's been every Thursday for the last few weeks about things that you should stop doing that could possibly destroy your relationship. And these are based on the principles of Dr. John Gottman. Dr. Blasko, can you share with our viewers a little bit about what we've talked about before?
Sure. So, Dr. Gottman actually has done a lot of research and been able to determine kind of 4 things that you don't want to do in your relationship. And we've talked about defensiveness was the first. We've talked about contempt, and today we're going to talk about criticism. And as Kelly mentioned, it said about don't let down your defenses. Well, criticism can lead to defensiveness because if you're criticizing someone, they might get defensive. So today, what we're going to learn about is how to address criticism and maybe reword or restate something that might be of conflict between you and your partner. Um,
So, Dr. Blasko, when I think of criticism, it really, to me, is about, well, wait, I'm sorry, did I introduce myself? No, maybe.
yeah, I didn't introduce myself
I know.
either.
Because we've been meeting here at the same time in the same place. So for our viewers, we should probably introduce ourselves. I am Kelly Smith, and I am a social worker. I serve as a program analyst for military community support programs.
Yeah, and I'm Dr. Kelly Blasko, and I'm a psychologist, and I work for the Defense Health Agency, and I actually do couples therapy here on Joint Base Lewis McChord, and it's a really great job, and I really love helping our military couples in any way that we can. And the nice thing about what Kelly and I have been talking about is that there are some really tangible things that you can do to enhance your relationship and you don't have to be stuck. So without further ado, I think we'll go on and talk about criticism.
Yes. So the reason why we wanted to really have these relationship real talks are to kind of dive into some tangible things that you can do to help improve your relationship. We know that the top reason that people request non-medical counseling through Military One Source or through the MFLAC program is to address relationship challenges. And so as Dr. Blasko mentioned, we talked about defensiveness, we've talked about contempt, and now we're going to dive into criticism. And I kind of really think about addressing criticism as not eliminating the problem, because the problem and the conflict is still going to be there, but it's teaching you how to argue or advocate for your own needs without blaming the other person. So with that being said, Dr. Blasko, what exactly is criticism?
So criticism is kind of a natural way for us to explain why we might feel bad or we have negative feelings. So sometimes it's hard for us to identify what we need or how we feel. And it can be much easier to look around your partner, even work, and blame your unhappiness or your negative, whatever's going on for you outside of yourself. So that can actually initiate an argument. Not that that's necessarily wrong, but it's not recognizing that maybe you have something you need and need to state that. And sometimes it builds over time. Uh, uh, yeah, sometimes it builds over time. So if we learn to kind of look outside of ourselves for things that explain that we're feeling bad, it can become a habit. And you can also build up resentments. You might, that thing your spouse never wipes the counter. After the 100th time, you might have not having said that that's really important to you, go off and criticize your partner for not doing something right. Um,
Yeah, listening to you speak, Dr. Blasko, it really made me think about some of the things that stir up within my own relationship. And I'm wondering for some of our viewers, if you guys have experienced this resentment or this criticism that might bubble up in your relationship, I want you to share in the chat pod, because we would love to kind of hear what you have to say or your perspective on addressing criticism within your relationship. Now, Dr. Blasko, there is something else I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into is how does criticism really emerge within a relationship? I know that sometimes you mentioned that it might build up over time with resentment, or when you don't say anything for a long period of time to avoid the conflict, but it's still like, bubbling up in that person, which can be a little bit dangerous. Are there other things that you have seen in couples that you have worked with around criticism and how it develops over time?
Yeah, if I think about the military, some military specific scenarios. So, for example, maybe the service member has appears to have more allegiance to their unit or their buddies,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so the spouse or the partner might, go along with it for a while, but also feel very lonely and maybe second, for example, to their buddy. They might feel like they're not getting enough of their service member. So, that happens maybe over and over. Eventually, it feels like a resentment. And it goes away from the fact that maybe I am lonely. I have a need and I want to be with my partner. I want them to know that I have this need. But all I can really think to say is, geez, you're spending too much time with them. You don't care about me, kind of thing, which can be a really critical statement. So that's one example that I think about. Another one is around expectations upon returning home from, let's say, a TDY or deployment. You've
Mhm.
been separated. Uh, Things are going on in the household. How they were going on. You went away, come back. Maybe it wasn't exactly how you thought it was going to be, and maybe there was a list that should have been done by the time you got back, and so on. So coming home, you might say, "Geez, I thought you would have done this," or "Why didn't you do this like we talked about?" Rather than thinking like, "Geez, I would like to come home to something maybe a little bit different than what I expected. I needed some normalcy or, something like familiar." So I think those are two examples that we can get caught up in, especially in the military life, because it does happen. These two things really do happen. It's part of military life.
I have one. I thought of one as you were speaking, and this is the month of May, and it's Military Spouse Appreciation Month, and I often think of our spouses as being some of the most resilient people that I know, wearing many different hats and having to multitask, be the master planner of all things. But something that I think sometimes might hit home and stir up some resentment for some spouses is that you have to move very often with your service member and your family, which means sometimes you have to put your career on the back burner or you have to start your career over again. And I think sometimes folks think, well, that's what you signed up for when you married into the military, but that's not really fair to say. And I think for some spouses, they might feel, whether it might be conscious or unconscious, some sense of resentment about having to do that or having to put themselves on the back burner because of that. I think it's important, though, in that if that is happening or if that's bubbling up, that there's a way to kind of address that so that it doesn't spill over into your relationship or into your arguments or discussions, and knowing what really is happening with you. I know we're going to talk a little bit, Dr. Blasko, in just a second about the solution to having this criticism coming up in the relationships. I see it here in the chat that one of our viewers stated that the attachment style, your upbringing, also impacts how you respond in these situations. And I think they're spot on with saying that. I mean, if this is what you viewed in your childhood growing up constantly between your parents or interactions you've seen in other relationships and, harboring those feelings, it could definitely impact how you yourself have learned how to communicate your feelings or your needs with your partner. And I see what Rebecca has said here, that after 18 years, she just found out that her husband hates when the kitchen cabinets are not closed. And it's things like that that just come up. But you know what? She made a good point in stating that, this might only be because he's about to deploy. And so I really like that space of grace that she has allowed, understanding like, well, what is it really about? Is it really about the cabinet doors, or is there something else that's going on? But Dr. Blasko, I want to lead some of our viewers with the solution to this. What do you recommend to couples? What is the antidote for criticism?
Yeah, so this is what Dr. Gottman would call a gentle startup. And that is the opposite of criticism. And it requires you to ask yourself how you feel about what's coming up and what you need. I think it can be confusing. I think in military life, you hear the word resilient over and over and over, and that's a good thing. But being resilient doesn't mean that you don't have feelings or you don't have needs. So I think this is kind of a new, it can feel counter to what people are saying to you about you being resilient. So when you sense that you may be criticizing your partner or just always, and they get defensive, you can kind of tell if you're being critical. You might step back and say, what really is going on for me? What do I need? And how can I state that to my partner without saying in a blaming way, you? And the reason they call it gentle startup is if you stick with how you feel and what you need, it's coming from your experience. It's not saying you are causing that for me. And then it can start asking for what you need. And also, your partner can then help in solving that problem or helping get your need met. And that creates a sense of we-ness as opposed to separation from each other or, and kind of antagonistic. The other thing I wanted to mention, gentle startup isn't necessarily going to avoid conflict. If you always say how you feel and always how you need, that doesn't mean that there won't be conflict, but it will get to the heart of what you might need for yourself and how your partner can help you with that.
Dr. Blasko, I would love for us to do some examples in role plays so that folks can kind of really drive home and understand what we are trying to convey here about what a gentle startup may look like. Do you want to take the first one?
Sure. So the first one I would say is we don't have enough money to pay the bills because you spend too much on stuff you want without thinking about us. I'm sure all of you have heard some variation of that. You're spending too much on your truck. You're spending too much on clothes, whatever. So what do you think? Here's a way that I suggest you might want to try to reword that. So listen to it carefully. I'm worried about not being able to pay our bills on time. I need help from you to keep our spending within our budget. So I'm stating the reason I'm criticizing you is I'm worried that we're not going to be able to pay our bills and we'll be in debt. And then I need help from you because I can't do this alone. It is a partner kind of thing. So it really puts it more explicit, and I'm not blaming you. I need you. I need your help. So that's just one example. And I think Kelly has another one that she could do for us.
Okay. Yep. I have one. So here we go. Action. John, Christopher, our son, is so upset because you missed reading during his bedtime story again. I mean, you are always choosing to spend time with helping someone from your unit rather than spending time with us. And I mean, this is what you always do, and it really is upsetting. Now that, as you guys can see, I'm saying you so many times about what my partner is doing, what John is doing. But let's see a different way that can be rephrased or reworded so that I'm kind of having more of a gentle startup as opposed to being critical. And action. I have to separate the two.
I like your action part. I didn't do that.
So what I could say possibly is, I feel really frustrated when I see our son be so disappointed when you're not there to read the bedtime story. It's really important to me and to him for you to be there at his bedtime. Could you help me with this or figure out a better way to be there for, both of you guys there for that bedtime. Now that way sounds a little bit softer and a little bit more gentler, as opposed to doing all of the blaming, and also including your partner in the way to solve the problem. I think some of the key steps to how to recognize if you are criticizing is to recognize first when you're being critical. It kind of like requires you to like take a step back and hear what you're saying. You can already feel it in your body. At least I can know for myself when I'm being critical, when I'm criticizing my husband, not just my husband, but even the other people, I can feel it within my body. It's those physical things. Like I can feel my heart racing. I can feel my hands sweating. I can feel myself in my head more than what I typically am. And just doing that recognition to start, I think is one of the first steps. And then another way you can also do that is to see if your partner is getting defensive. If you hear them trying to take it for themselves constantly, then maybe it might be a cue for you to check in with yourself and say, am I being extra critical? And then also another thing you consider is, well, did I say how I'm feeling? Did I say what I need, as opposed to stating what they're always doing or what they're not always doing? And then also you can give your partner the opportunity to help you meet your need. I know it all sounds simple and easy, but it definitely takes a lot of practice to do this work here.
Yeah, and I was noticing Tiffany had put in the chat about her husband being gone and coming home and feeling overwhelmed about it. This is a good time for yourself, and even if you have a chance to talk with your husband, to really start thinking about what you feel and need, so that you can start those discussions once you're together again, and have maybe a gentle startup, as opposed to coming in blindsided, both of you, in some form or fashion. But I do really like that word, gentle startup, because I think it gives us permission to state our needs and our feelings, and it's okay. It's not that you have to be mean or anything. Nobody likes to be mean, generally. We all feel mean, but we don't like to feel that way. So, but anyway, I'm really excited, I think, and I would encourage you to go back and listen to the other three sessions, because we talked about criticism, and we talked today that you might get defensive. So you might want to go back and listen to that as well, as if you haven't had a chance. And I think we also talked, Kelly, about some ways that, listening to what we're talking about, it's hard to put in practice, but we do have resources that can be helpful as well. So I'll let Kelly speak to that.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can kind of work through some of these things with professionals in your area, or those that are not in your area. And it's great because of technology nowadays. So one resource might be using non-medical counseling. And that is just short-term solution-focused counseling. And, as I stated at the beginning of our conversation, the top reason that people seek help for non-medical counseling is for relationship support. And so through Military OneSource, you can connect with one of our non-medical counselors, whether they're in your community. You can connect with them face-to-face. You can connect with them over the phone or via secure video conferencing, which we've been doing quite a bit over the last year and a half or so. If you're at a military installation or near military installation, you can connect with one of our military and family life counselors, also known as MFLACs. They are at the family service centers, embedded within units. They can help you with working through some of those challenges and understanding how to address criticism, how to not get defensive through your communication with your partner. If you want to learn more about non-medical counseling or how to connect with an MFLAC, you can call Military OneSource at 1-800-342-9647. You can also go to the Military OneSource website at militaryonesource.mil and do a live chat. And we also have a Military OneSource app called the My Military OneSource app that's for free on Google Play or the Apple App Store. So there are many different ways that you can get in contact with Military OneSource to connect with a non-medical counselor. Now, say you don't want to talk to a counselor about these kinds of things, you can also work with a consultant on our Building Healthy Relationships Specialty Consultation with Military One Source. Our Building Healthy Relationship Specialty Consultation is not counseling, but it's several different tracks of skill building that focuses on different types of relationships. And I believe one of the tracks focuses specifically on communication. And so it'll give you an opportunity, whether you want to do it independently or with your partner, to do some role playing, to go through some scenarios, just to kind of give you some foundational skills to help improve your communication with your partner. And then, of course, you can always go to your local installation, family service center, or possibly the MTF, the military treatment facility, to talk with a counselor there if they have space available. So there are many options for you to work on your relationship with a professional out there in our community.
Yeah, and one other option is to talk with a chaplain. Usually there's a chaplain with on base or in the unit that is more than willing to talk, and they also have resources that they can point you to, similar to what Kelly was speaking about, but maybe some have retreats and workshops that might be helpful as well. So
yeah, I saw a comment in the chat about, do we know if the chaplains still have strong bond retreats? I think it was strong bonds that I saw. And I believe they do. It just really depends on which installation you're at or which service branch you're attached to. So I encourage you to either go to your family service center, or you can also reach out directly to the chaplain's office, or you can call Military One Source. They will connect you with the right point of contact to find out where local chaplain retreats or strong bond retreats are available to you and your partner.
Yeah.
Dr. Blasko, I don't know, is there anything else that we missed today with criticism?
I don't think so. I think I guess the word is gentle startup. Start practicing today. I think I'll try anyway.
Yeah. Oh, as we're closing out, I have to bring up Deb's comment here about, she was just chiming in with what Tiffany stated about, preparing for her husband to come home, her partner to come home after they've gotten this good routine in place. And Deb replied stating, it's not bad, but it's more energy, and it helped her to prepare herself and grant herself some grace to do the work. And that is key. I think it really is key within regards to our relationships and communicating with our partner, extending grace to them, as well as us extending lots of grace to ourselves. So with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Next week,
we're going to be talking about stonewalling, which is a really important thing. It's going to just a little bit of foreshadowing of it is about how to calm down when you get really agitated in a conversation. So stay tuned, because it will kind of put the wrapper on all these things that we've been talking about so far. So we look forward to sharing with you next week.
And I feel like I have, and one more thing. To learn about communication and resources around communication with your partner, you can go to the Military One Source website and search REWE, the WE. That's REWHEWE. And there it goes in the corner there. If you check out the Read the We landing page, there's tons of resources and links, not only through Military One Source, but other resources through the services that can help you with your partner, help you individually to enhance your relationship. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope to see you next Thursday to talk about stonewalling, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day, guys.
Have a great day.